Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope that you are having the best week that you can. I hope that you are staying warm, that you are staying safe. I know that a lot of people, especially in Texas, are experiencing power outages, no water, burst pipes. I am from Texas. I know a lot of people who are dealing with this. So know that I am thinking about you. And hopefully things are looking up in that part of the world. So today we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more serious. So on Fridays we give you guys tips to help your child get the education that they deserve. And we want this to be actionable. We want it to be helpful to you, and we try to keep it under 10 minutes because we know that you have a busy life. You need the information and what you need to do next, and then you need to move on. So today we're going to be talking about dyslexia. And so if your child is having reading troubles, writing troubles, or you're just kind of worried about dyslexia, you don't know a whole lot about it, this is going to be the video for you. And then we've also posted some other content and videos about dyslexia and reading in general. So if you want more of this content, make sure that you follow along. Or if you know someone who might be interested in what I have to say about this topic, please share this out so that we can spread the information. So we're talking about dyslexia today, and I want to give some facts as well as some helpful tips. So I'm going to be relying on my notes that are on my screen a little bit more than I normally do, just because we normally do kind of a conversational talk, but today I want to make sure I get things correct. So you maybe see me glancing down, and that's why. I have written some things down that I want to make sure that I convey to you guys today. So let's talk about dyslexia. What is dyslexia? So a lot of people have this misconception that dyslexia is seeing words backwards or seeing letters backwards or writing backwards, and that's just not true. So dyslexia is a neurological condition that makes reading more difficult for individuals. So it's something that's going on in the brain that makes that like reading, language processing more difficult for people who have dyslexia. And a lot of dyslexic people have coping strategies that they use to be able to read and function in the world. So even if you have dyslexia and you haven't been diagnosed, you could be functioning because you've put in place these coping mechanisms. And there's also a misconception that people with dyslexia cannot read, and that is just not true. Again, a lot of them have coping mechanisms that they've developed to help them read, but the reading can still be difficult. People with dyslexia are not less intelligent than the general population. So they have intelligence that's on par or above most of the time. Dyslexia does not affect IQ. And then dyslexia is actually can help people be even more successful because of the type of thinking that dyslexics normally have. They're very creative. And again, they've had those coping strategies. So they're really used to kind of finding a way around what's blocking them and getting to where they want to go. So you'll see a lot of entrepreneurs as people with dyslexia. See, I'm trying not to say dyslexics because I don't want to label people like that. People with dyslexia feels better to me because that's just one part of the person. And some people think that dyslexia is hereditary. So if you have someone with dyslexia in your family, you may be more likely to have dyslexia, or your children. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind if you're entertaining this as a possibility. If you have dyslexia in your family, you probably want to know the signs so that you can look out for that and get intervention for it early if you have children. So what are the signs of dyslexia? So if it's not reading backwards, seeing things backwards, or writing backwards, how am I going to know if my child has dyslexia? There's a lot of different signs, and this is definitely not an extensive list. You can find lists online, you can find quizzes online to help you kind of tease out whether you or your child might have dyslexia. But here are a few of the signs, and I'm going to scroll down my notes so I don't miss any of them. So a lot of people with dyslexia can have trouble remembering words or phrases. So they're trying to access a common word like fence, but they can't remember the word for what they're talking about. So sometimes they'll use things like stuff and things to replace a lot of words, or they'll say until they can come up with the word. Or they might use an alternate word that they can access, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that context. We see it with young kids all the way up to older kids and adults. The next thing is trouble with rhyming. So kids who have trouble, when I say, tell me something that rhymes with cat, they may not be able to access like rhyme, and they don't do well with like rhyming games. Trouble with remembering songs and nursery rhymes and sequence of things like dance moves, or songs, or things that go in order can also be something that is a sign of dyslexia. When reading, students who have dyslexia sometimes skip over small words. So things like the, or, and, they may be reading and skip over those words. Students with dyslexia may have a hard time sounding out words. This sounds a little bit more on track with what you would think with dyslexia. So when they're being taught to read, they have a hard time sounding out those words. And they have a hard time if you say a word to them and tell me the sounds in this word. So like, tell me the sounds in cat. They may have a hard time saying k, a, t, or even tell me the first sound in this word. They may have a hard time saying the first sound in cat is k. They may get letters that look similar confused. So think about D and B. They may get those confused, or P and Q. They also may have difficulty spelling, and this kind of ties into having a hard time sounding out words, and having a hard time with things like rhyming, things like hearing a word and segmenting it into the sounds that are in that word. And then finally, the last thing I have written down, again, this is not an extensive list, is difficulty with writing assignments. So a lot of times we may see students with dyslexia avoid writing assignments because it's really difficult for them to kind of have the thoughts, get them on the paper with the spelling difficulties, and the reading difficulties. That can make writing assignments super hard for people who have dyslexia. All right, so maybe you heard on that list some things that may be putting up some red flags for you. Or you just want to know what to do next if your child starts to exhibit some of these signs of having dyslexia. The first thing I want to say is do not panic. I know it's hard not to panic when you feel like your child may have a learning difference because you know that there may be some tough things coming up. But your child can be a successful reader, a super successful reader, and definitely a successful student even when they have dyslexia. They may even be a better student or better at all kinds of different things, creative things. So try not to panic. So one place you can start is by getting connected with resources. So I'm going to put some links and the title of a book in the notes down below. And so the first place you might want to look is the International Dyslexia Association. And they have really great information as far as, lists of signs, more explanations about dyslexia and what it is. It's a great place to start if you don't know a whole lot about dyslexia, but you need to figure it out for yourself before you kind of go on to some of these next steps we talk about. And then the book Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz is very fantastic. You can buy it on Amazon or I think at like all major bookstores. That was a huge resource for me when I was learning about dyslexia as an educator. And it has lists and things like that of signs and all kinds of information about how to help your child. And then understood.org has really great information about what we're going to talk about next, which is special education, IEPs, and 504s, and helping advocate for your child. All right, I know I'm going fast, but I'm trying to get you guys out of here in 10 minutes. So next steps, you've looked at the resources, you've gotten a little bit more information, and you feel like, okay, I need to move on. I think my child might have dyslexia or some other type of learning difference. So here's the next thing to do. So, reach out to your child's teacher or their school counselor, their principal, and tell them about your concerns, and talk about what they see as the next steps as far as testing and as far as intervention. So a lot of times students will need to be tested before they can access any special education services like having an IEP or a 504. You may want to reach out to an education advocate, especially if maybe your child's school is resistant to getting you the help that you feel like your child needs or getting you the testing that you feel like your child needs. So someone like Meg Flanagan with Meg Flanagan Education or a local education advocate might be a really good resource for you as you move through this process. Especially if if the child's school is like resistant to testing, maybe if you're looking at getting outside testing and bringing that back into the school system, someone like an education advocate is the best person to go to. Next, I would suggest learning about the teaching methods that have been researched and proven to help students with dyslexia. So reading instruction for students with dyslexia needs to be specific and especially phonics based. And so we have lots of research out there about the types of curriculum and instruction that works best for students with dyslexia. One of them is Orton-Gillingham based instruction. So I've put a link down from the International Dyslexia Association with their information about the instruction that works the very best for students with dyslexia. And it's gonna maybe seem like a lot at first, but this systematic approach really does help these students. And then finally, if you are kind of like in that holding pattern with the school and you're not feeling like you're getting your child the help that they need quickly, you can always reach out to a tutoring company or an instruction company like Hoffman Tutoring Group to get your child matched with a tutor that can do Orton-Gillingham type instruction with your child who has dyslexia or even has just reading difficulties, even if they haven't been confirmed with having or not having dyslexia. Because the cool thing about the methods that we use with those students is they actually work with all students. I don't really understand why we don't use them just for all students in general, because then that would cover the students with dyslexia and the students without. But that's a topic for a different day. So you can reach out to a company to get matched with an instructor that can help your child while you're kind of waiting around for these special education services or to supplement those special education services. If you have questions about any of this, please reach out on Messenger, or if you have personal experiences that you'd like to share with others, I would love to see them in the comments. Tell me something that you didn't know about dyslexia that you learned from this video. And then next week we will be back on Friday talking about a different reading topic. So stay tuned. I hope you stay warm and safe this weekend, and I will see you next week.